Hello everyone and welcome to BBA Simplified. I am Dr. Vinky Sharma and in today's marathon class, we will explore one of the most fascinating areas of organizational behavior. That's individual behavior. This unit helps us understand why people behave the way they do at work and how their personality and perception shape decisions and what motivates them to perform. So let us begin. Let's start with the basic concept, individual behavior. It refers to how a person thinks, feels, and acts in an organization setting. We need to understand here that every employee is unique. He is shaped by their values, their culture, their experience, and the attitude that they carry with themselves. So this behavior can influence productivity, motivation, and even the overall environment of the organization. So when we talk about individual behavior, what it is how a person thinks, feels, and acts as a work. Right? The behavior of an individual is actually influenced by biographical factors, from the genes that a person comes or acquired or inherent from, the personality an individual carries, perception of an individual, motivation, learning, and the overall environment of the organization. For example, two employees may have a same job description, but they may show very different levels of enthusiasm and commitment. And why is it happening? Because their individual behavior differs from each other. Moving on to determinants of behavior. Now, what determines this behavior? There are four major influencers. The first one is the biographical factor. This biographical factor includes age, gender, education, or experience of an individual. So whatever age you are in, you behave in a different manner. We see child behaving in a different manner as compared to a matured adult. Right? So these factors determine the behavior of an individual. The second factor is the psychological factor, such as the perception of an individual, how quickly the person learns, what is the personality, what is the attitude of an individual, because all these factors impact the psychology of an individual. The third factor is the organizational factor. This includes the structure of an organization, the culture of an organization, the leadership of an organization, what kind of a leadership is followed into that organization. These factors also influence the behavior of an individual. And the final determinant of a behavior is the environmental factor, like family background, the society, the peer groups, the social groups in we sit, and the kind of discussion that we do. So all these comes under the environmental factor. These factors actually interact to shape how a person behave at a work. For example, there is a highly educated employee in a supportive environment. He will actually be likely to show more initiative than one in a restrictive or a rigid setting. So we see that the setting that we grow up in, the environment that we live up in, also influence the way we behave. Let us now talk about personality. A key concept in organizational behavior. Personality is the sum of total of ways in which an individual reacts and interact with others. So our personality or the personality of an individual determines that how people respond to a situation. Are they responding in a calm way or in an anxious way? Are they organized or are they spontaneous? Are they assertive or are they reserved? And then there are other different traits as well. The main determinant of personality are heredity, environment, and the situation. These three determinants determine that how an individual is going to portray himself in a particular situation. In simple terms, we can say that heredity gives the basic trait, environment shapes the habit, and the situation test how we use them. So here we have seen three things, which is the first one is heredity, the second one is the environment in which we live, and the third one is the situation in which an individual is. So these are the three factors that determine the personality of an individual. For example, someone may be naturally introverted, but they take leadership roles when required, and that is what the situational influence is. Right? So we have seen that in different situations, people may come up with their different traits. Moving on to the theories of personality, these are the three important theories that comes under personality. One is the type A and type B personality. Second one is the Big Five model, and the third one is the locus of control, where we'll see the internal locus of control versus external locus of control. So these three determinants that we were talking about are the important determinants that you must understand. Let's now discuss different theories of personality, starting with type A versus type B personality. The type A, type B personality was proposed by Friedman and Rosenman. They were the two cardiologists. Right? Now they say that type A individuals have different traits. For example, they are more competitive, they are impatient, they are achievement driven, and they are aggressive. These are the traits which are generally found in type A people. Then there are type B people who are more relaxed, they are easygoing, they are creative, and they are patient. So we can say that type A and type B people have opposite or different traits altogether. Now comes the question that what type of an individual is an efficient or a right individual for a workplace, in a work setting. Actually, it is said that both types have their values. Type A people or type A employees drive performance. Right? And type B people, they maintain team harmony, which is also one of the important factor in any of the organization, that is team harmony. Now, what is the role of a manager here? The key for a manager is to balance both the energies in their teams. That is how a manager will be able to deal with both the types of personalities in the organization. So let's look at the workplace comparison of type A employees and type B employees. The work style of type A employees are that they are fast paced and they believe in multitasking. Type B people are steady and focused. They focus on whatever they are doing in the current point of time. Let's now talk about the level of stress. Type A employees are highly stressed, and type B people, as we said, that they are more relaxed, so they are low on stress level. The leadership style, we say that type A people are task oriented. उनका पूरा फोकस होता है टास्क के ऊपर, काम कंप्लीट होना चाहिए इन ईदर वेज. Type B people are more people oriented. They understand that as an individual, people need to rest even while performing or completing their tasks. So they are more people oriented. They believe in harmony. They believe in complete consideration of the people. Examples we can see here that type A people are very good for to be a sales executive, to be at a CEO's position. Type B people could be teachers, they could be designers, right? So these are the examples of type A and type B people. Now let's move on to the second theory of personality, that is Big Five personality model. To learn it, we also call it as OCEAN. The full form of OCEAN is O for openness and experience, C for consciousness, E for extroversion, A for agreeableness, and N for neuroticism. This Big Five model was developed by McCree and Costa. One of the most reliable ways to understand personality is through the Big Five personality trait. We also call it as ocean model, right? Now let's understand that what is openness to experience. We say that the individual who has this openness to experience kind of a personality, they are very curious, they are very imaginative, and they are very creative. They keep on thinking of the new things. They keep on evolving new ways of performing the task. So they are very open to experience. They enjoy whenever a challenge is given to them. The next one is the consciousness. This is basically focused upon the discipline and the reliability of an individual. They are more organized. They feel that everything whichever the person is doing, it should be in an organized manner. They are responsible for their actions, and there are many people who may be relying upon them for the task that the individual is completing. The next kind of a personality is extroversion. Extraversion is a very common term, and I am sure that you all are aware that what does extraversion means. They are very social, they are high on energy, they are outgoing, outspoken. So whatever comes into their mind, they simply go out and discuss it with others. Next one is agreeableness. This agreeableness involves the kind of personalities where people are very kind, very cooperative. They believe in kindness and cooperative nature, and they say that if we agree to an individual, it becomes easy to understand the other person's perspective as well. Then the last one is the neuroticism. This has something to do with the emotional stability. Now an individual could be low on emotional stability, or he could be high on emotional stability. The ones who are low on emotional stability are considered to be more relaxed and stable, just like we had studied in type A, type B theory. So low stability or low on neuroticism means we are talking about type B individual, and the ones who are high are generally anxious. So here we are talking about type A personalities. So these are the 5 factors that comes under Big Five personality model. Managers use personality assessments to assign people to roles that fit their natural traits. There are different tests that comes up which defines that what kind of a personality traits the individual is high upon, and on the basis of those tests, manager see that what kind of a team they are dealing with, and then they assign the task accordingly. Now let's see this Big Five in the workplace. How does it work? I have taken an example here that let's say that there is high openness. In case of this, the people who are suited to work with this kind of a trait is they are suited for creative roles. It could be marketing, it could be research and development. The ones who are high on consciousness, they are best for precision roles, for example finance, HR, right? The one who are high on extroversion, they are excellent sales people, and they are also able to hold a leadership position. The people who are high on agreeableness, they are ideal for teamwork. And the ones who are low on neuroticism, they are stable under stress. I hope Big Five model is clear to all of you. Next, let's talk about locus of control, wherein we'll see internal versus external. What is locus of control? It was given by Julian Roters. Right, he gave the concept of locus of control by explaining that how people view control over events in their lives. उनके जीवन में जितना भी काम हो रहा है उसको लोग कैसे perceive करते हैं, and how they are able to have a control over their life outcomes. Right, people with an internal locus of control, they believe that success depends on our own efforts. अगर मैं एफर्ट नहीं डालूंगी या मैं एफर्ट नहीं डालूंगा तो मेरे को सक्सेस नहीं मिलेगी. right? So those with an external locus of control, they think that luck or fate decides the outcome. Their belief system is absolutely different. हम तो काम कर ही लेंगे, हमारा लक ही हमारा साथ नहीं देता, या मैंने तो बहुत कुछ किया बट मेरा लक अच्छा नहीं था. So they are the ones who are generally dependent upon the luck or their fate. They are called as the ones who believe on external locus, that something from outside would decide the rate of my success. And the ones who believe on internal locus, they said that it is me only who have to achieve the success depending on the kind of effort I am putting in. For example, an internal person may say that I will work harder next time, and the external one would say that the exam was too tough. So this is how they blame either themselves or the environment or the situation. Now what happens in an organization setting? Those with an internal locus, they are more confident and they are proactive because they believe that I will do it and I will be responsible. So encouraging this mindset can lead to stronger accountability among the employees as compared to the ones who trust on external locus of control. Let's look at its workplace relevance. When we talk about attitude, the people who believe in internal locus, they are more proactive, they are more confident as compared to the external locus. They are more dependent and they are uncertain of whatever they would do in future. Their work behavior, internal locus people would take the initiative. On the other hand, external locus people will avoid responsibility. Reactions to failures. These people believe that I will now learn from my failure and I will improve next time. But these people start blaming the luck or the situation. Maybe the question paper was tough, maybe the checking was tough, maybe the teacher did not check it right. Right? So they start blaming the other factors or maybe their own luck. And this is where we complete personality. Moving on to the next concept, that is perception. The process by which individuals interpret information to give meaning to their environment is nothing but perception. Here an individual is using these sensory impressions so that he or she can interpret a particular situation, a particular process, or a particular product maybe. The perception of an individual is generally influenced by the experience of an individual, the motives that they have, the expectations that they have, maybe from the society or from themselves, and the situation in which they are in. There are different people who may perceive a same situation differently. Why? Because perception depends on these factors, which is experience, motives, expectations, and situation. There are some common perceptual errors that include stereotyping, halo effect, selective perception, and projection. Let's understand what are these errors. When I say stereotyping is nothing but it is generalizing everything, right? This stereotyping is a very, very common thing which is used in caste systems, right? So a particular kind of a characteristic is associated with a particular caste, right? That is stereotyping. Or maybe we can say that there is a famous school in your area and a stereotype is made for that school students that these students are the top students. Acha, us school ka bachcha hai, must be very intelligent. So what we are doing is that we are generalizing and associating with the school and the student of that school. Ab zaruri to nahi hai na that the entire school will have all the intelligent students, but we still stereotype. So this is what generalizing means. The second error is a halo effect. Halo effect is nothing but it has something to do with the judgment that is based on one trait. अगर कोई लेट आ रहा है, right? So what we do is कि हम एक judgment pass कर देते हैं that the person is very lazy, that's why he comes late. Late होने की वजह could be an accident, could be the road traffic, right? It could be anything. It could be maybe somebody is ill at home, but what we do is that basis one characteristic, we judge a overall personality of an individual and we say that the person is lazy. So this is the halo effect, when you judge an individual on the basis of one trait. Next is selective perception. Now what is this selective perception? It is seeing what we want to see. I see a shabby person, right, and I say that the person will not be able to manage things, क्योंकि मुझे दिख रहा है कि वो खुद इतना शैबी है, पर हो सकता है कि उसके शैबी होने की वजह कुछ और है. It could be that the person did not get to sleep from last 3 days because he was completing an important project, right? And now he's so tired that he does not even have a stamina to make him right. So selective perception is nothing but हम वही देखते हैं जो हम देखना चाहते हैं, avoiding the other factors maybe. That is again a perceptual error. Then the last one is the projection. This projection again is an error wherein we project a particular and we start associating a particular character with an individual. So these are the perceptual errors that we see. So now comes the question that what managers need to be aware of. There is a need that managers be aware of these biases because perception affect the decision, communication and team relationship. For example, a manager has a gets into the biasness of halo effect. So what will happen that now a manager would start thinking about an employee that the employee is not well equipped because of just one single character. And then what will happen at the time of appraisals, at the time of increments, the manager would never give good rating to that individual. So these perceptual errors need to be very, very clear and they need to be aware of these errors so that they can avoid getting these errors while they are judging or evaluating the performance of the employees. Now, what is the role of perception in decision making? It plays a critical role while we are making any decision. Why? Because decisions depend on how situations are perceived. If a manager perceives an employee as careless, they might ignore their good work later. And that is nothing but a perception bias. So accurate perception leads to better decisions and the fairer evaluations. Managers may misjudge because of the assumptions, because of the biases. So they need to be aware that there are some kinds of perceptual errors, and second, they should avoid getting into those biasness. So whenever there is an accurate perception, we see that the decision would always be better. Therefore, good managers should cross-check their perceptions through observations and feedbacks before they actually take any action. And this is where we finish perception. Moving on to learning. Next comes learning, which makes a relatively permanent change in the behavior resulting from experience or training. Why learning is important? Because it is bringing in a permanent change in an individual's behavior. How? Because they learn something, they experience something, they take some training, and now they are a better version of themselves. Right? There are three main theories that comes under learning. First is the classical conditioning theory, which was given by Pavlov. Classical conditioning is nothing but it is learning through association. We'll be discussing about these theories in detail in the coming slides. But to understand it now, we say classical conditioning is nothing but it is learning through association. Second is operant conditioning, that is learning through rewards and punishments. जैसे हम छोटे बच्चों को कहते हैं ना, अगर आप अच्छे मार्क्स लेके आओगे, we'll buy you a gift, and if you will not get good marks, you will not get anything. So that is how we are conditioning our childs, or how we are conditioning our kids, through operant conditioning. And the third theory is the social learning, which is learning by observing others. right? This theory was given by Bandura. We say that as we live in the society, we see others and we learn from them. Now let's talk about the first classical conditioning theory, which was given by Ivan Pavlov, and we say it as learning by association. Ivan Pavlov was a Russian psychologist. So what Pavlov did was, Pavlov discovered this principle while studying dogs' digestive systems. Right? He observed that dogs started salivating not only when food was presented, but even at the sound of a bell that had been consistently paired with feeding time. This process is nothing but associating a neutral stimulus with a meaningful one, and this is called learning by association. What happened here is that a behavior is learned when we associate one stimulus with the other, and we see that there is association between the stimulus and a response. So the key concept talks about unconditional stimulus, natural response, neutral stimulus plus unconditional stimulus, and so we get a conditioned response. What happened into this experiment? Pavlov was actually studying the digestive systems of the dog. So every day he used to give food to the two dogs, because he had to then see that how much time a dog takes to digest one particular kind of a food. Now during this study, he get into an experiment wherein what he did was, he thought that I have to every time call the dog while I am giving him the food. So rather than calling, what he started was, he had kept a bell and he had started giving a bell along with presentation of a food. So this bell is a neutral stimulus, right? And food is a natural stimulus. तो जब फूड मिलता था, एक नेचुरल रिस्पॉन्स आता था डॉग का. क्या होता है जनरली जब फूड प्रेजेंट किया जाता है, दैट देयर इज अ सैलिवेशन. सो देयर इज अ नेचुरल रिस्पॉन्स ऑफ सैलिवेशन. So next time what happened was that what Pavlov did, he had only rung the bell and did not present the food, and he saw that dog immediately started salivating, because here the dog has learned that whenever this bell rings, he is presented with the food. खाना नहीं भी दिया तो भी सेलिवेशन था. अदरवाइज क्या होता था कि खाना होता था तो सेलिवेशन होता था. सो दिस इज हाउ ही हैड कम टू एन एक्सपेरिमेंट एंड अ कंक्लूजन दैट learning can happen through a association. If we associate one thing with the other thing, people will start learning about it, right? So this is the classical conditioning theory. Now what happens in an organization? How can we use this classical conditioning in the organization? It applies when employees develop positive feeling towards certain cues. For example, a company anthem may give a positivity, appreciation during meetings, or even the scent of their workplace. These are small cues that are conditioned. They give motivation and boost the morale among the individuals. Coming on to the second theory of learning, that is operant conditioning, given by B.F. Skinner. He said that here the learning happens through consequences. कुछ अच्छा हुआ, कुछ बुरा हुआ, और उन consequences के basis पे learning develop हुई. Now, unlike Pavlov, Skinner emphasized that behavior is influenced by whether it is rewarded or whether it is punished. Right? So there are two things that Skinner had focused upon. You will perform one thing if you are rewarded, and you will stop performing the other thing if you are punished. Right? Remember the time जब first time आपने कभी किसी भी hot चीज को touch किया होगा, and the consequences was that you may have burnt your finger or your hand. Next time, did you ever dare to touch a hot thing? No, you were cautious. So what happened there? That you had learned by the punishment, that is a burnt finger or a burnt hand, right? So the behavior is influenced and is developed by the consequences. So Skinner also introduced 4 mechanisms here. He had talked about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishments and extinctions. Let's talk about positive reinforcement. This is nothing but reward, and reward only for the desirable behavior. This positive reinforcement where good behavior is rewarded. I wanted my kid to perform or to behave in a particular way. My kid performed and I rewarded him or her. Right? Then there are negative reinforcement. This negative reinforcement is where unpleasant situations are removed to encourage the right action. What we are doing is we are punishing so that we can change the behavior, change the the wrong deeds. Right? So here what we are doing is we are removing the discomfort to strengthen the behavior. Then comes punishment, which discourages undesirable behavior. Desirable behavior को encourage करने के लिए we had given positive reinforcement, and unwanted behavior को discourage करने के लिए there are punishments. And then finally there is extinction, where ignoring unwanted behavior gradually makes it disappear. You want a behavior to be extinguished, to be disappear forever. So we start ignoring that behavior until it fades, because it is said कि जब आप किसी चीज के ऊपर ज्यादा ध्यान देते हो तो वो behavior prominent हो जाता है. So this is the another way of ignoring so that a behavior gets fades off. Now looking at this entire theory from the organizational perspective, what happens in the workplace is that salary bonuses, appreciations, promotions, these are the forms of reinforcement, right, which are given to the employees so that they perform in their bestest way. While penalties for absenteeism or delay are the examples of punishment. Managers can shape the behavior effectively through these consistent reinforcement system. Then we have the third theory of learning, which is social learning theory, given by Albert Bandura. He had talked about learning by observation. He said that we always and generally learn by observing others. This Bandura social learning theory suggests that people watch, they remember, and then they imitate others' behavior, especially if the model is respected or rewarded. Everyone have their ideal. So what do? We start imitating our ideal. Why? Because that ideal person is rewarded for that kind of a behavior. All the cricketers would want to be either Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar or Rohit Sharma. So they start imitating those cricketers. Why? Because their behavior, they are the top notches into their field, and their behavior is always rewarded and respected for whatever they do. Right? Bandura had identified 4 stages, which were attention, retention, reproduction and motivation. So how does this behavior is learned? In 4 different phases. The first phase is attention. When an individual start paying attention towards the behavior, they start observing the behavior of an individual. This is the first phase, which is observe the model. Then in the second phase, what happens that they retain, they remember the behavior of an individual. Then what do? They come on to the third phase of reproduction. They try to imitate. They start repeating those kind of behaviors. And finally, the motivation, which is they continue if their imitation or their behavior is rewarded by the people around them. Now, in the workplace, new employees often learn from the work ethics, from their seniors, the communication styles, the problem solving approaches of their managers. How? By observing senior colleagues or their mentors. And this is why role modeling and mentorships are essential in building the organizational culture. So these are the 3 theories of learning given by different authors, basis different types of. Now we move to one of the most important behavioral drives, that is motivation. It is the inner force that energizes and directs behavior towards organizational goals. Right? A motivated employee works with enthusiasm, creativity, and consistency as compared to the employee who is not motivated. And we also understand that without motivation, even the best skills can go underutilized. That is why we say that it is one of the most important behavioral drivers. The challenge for a manager is to find that what truly motivates each person, because every individual has different drives for motivation. It can be money for somebody, it can be recognition for the other person, it could be learning, or even the self-satisfaction for another individual. So we see that a motivated employee is always high on performance and there is less turnover. People do not leave the job if they are satisfied in their workplace. Now, there are different theories of motivation also, which we'll be studying one by one. We'll start with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is something that we had also discussed in the previous slides and in the previous chapters. We'll revise it here one more time. Abraham Maslow explained motivation through a hierarchy of needs, which are arranged in 5 different levels. The very first level is the physiological needs: food, water, shelter, salary, without which the survival would be difficult. Second, in the hierarchy comes safety needs, which include job security and stability. After a particular period of time, an individual needs job security and stability in his or her career. The next stage in the hierarchy is the social need. You as an individual then start having a need of belongingness, of having more friends, of working in a team. That is where your social needs comes into the picture. The next level is the esteem needs, wherein you believe that recognition is important for you, respect and status is important for you. And then when you achieve all these 4 needs, then finally an individual gets onto the top of the hierarchy, that is self-actualization, which is achieving one's full potential. Once a lower need is satisfied, people seek the next level. So we are here, right? So once this lower need is satisfied, then people started seeking for the next levels. For example, when financial security is met, employees look for appreciations and growth. अब मेरी फाइनेंशियल सिक्योरिटी तो है नहीं, सैलरी तो अच्छी है नहीं, और मैं कहूँ कि नहीं मुझे तो इज्जत चाहिए, मुझे आप अप्रिशिएट करो, मुझे आप ग्रोथ दो. It will work as a motivator, but it would not help me in the survival or maybe in the long run. Coming on to the next theory of motivation, that is McGregor's theory X and theory Y. Douglas McGregor describes 2 contrasting views of people at work. He said that there are people that comes under the category of theory X, and then there are people who comes under the category called as theory Y. Theory X assumes that people dislike work, they avoid responsibility and they need strict supervision. अगर हम लोगों के ऊपर नहीं बैठेंगे, हम उनको सुपरवाइज नहीं करेंगे, तो लोग काम नहीं करेंगे, right? So they say कि काम करना किसी को पसंद नहीं है, so they should be or must be controlled. On the other hand, theory Y assumes that people are self-motivated, they are creative and they seek responsibility. And for them, work is natural. Why? Because they are self-motivated. What used to happen in the traditional organization settings? They used to operate on theory X style, focusing on the control. But in the modern organizations, now we see theory Y style, wherein you trust people and you let people participate in the work of the organization. So managers who believe in theory Y, they build stronger and more motivated team as compared to the managers who believe in theory X. Coming on to the Herzberg's motivation hygiene theory. He said, Frederick Herzberg, he had proposed that the job satisfaction and dissatisfaction from 2 different sets of factors. The first factor is the hygiene factor and the other factor are the motivators. Now these hygiene factors, for example pay, working conditions, policies, they prevent dissatisfaction but they do not create any kind of a motivation. ये सब कुछ मिलता रहेगा तो dissatisfaction नहीं होगा, right? लेकिन इनके होने से हम motivate भी नहीं होते हैं, right? So it is these hygiene factors focus on preventing the dissatisfaction, right? While when we talk about motivators like achievement, recognition, growth, they actually drive the satisfaction and performance. These motivators only help us to drive our performance and they are the ones that create the satisfaction in an individual. For example, an employee won't be happy just because they have good salary if they never feel appreciated. अब आपने salary तो अच्छी दे दी लेकिन आप उसको कभी appreciate नहीं करते and you always find out the problems, the issues in whatever they do. So this is where the employee will not feel satisfied. So motivation comes from the meaningful work and recognition as well, right? Then we have another theory of motivation, that is Vroom's expectancy theory. Victor Vroom gave a rational explanation for motivation. He said that people act based on the expected outcome. आप exactly expect क्या करते हो, उसी के हिसाब से लोग behave करते हैं. So his expectancy theory said that motivation is always equals to expectancy multiplied by instrumentality and valence. Now what is this instrumentality and valence? He said, let's start with expectancy first. What is expectancy? It is a belief that efforts leads to performance. मैं बिलीव करती हूँ कि अगर मैं एफर्ट डालूंगी तो मेरा परफॉर्मेंस अपने आप इम्प्रूव होगा. सो एक्सपेक्टेंसी इज एफर्ट दैट फाइनली लीड्स टू परफॉर्मेंस. Then comes instrumentality, that is belief that performance leads to reward. अब जब performance अच्छी हुई है तो फिर rewards तो मिलेंगे ही मिलेंगे. And then valence is how much value am I placing or am I giving to the rewards that I receive. Let's take an example of a student here. A student studied hard only if they believe that their effort will lead to good marks and that the marks will bring him recognition or opportunities at different places. Therefore, we need to understand that motivation depends on the belief, fairness and personal goals an individual have. And this is where we finish the theories of motivation as well. Let's now quickly summarize whatever we have learned in today's session. We have seen that an individual behavior is influenced by personality, perception, learning and motivation. There is an understanding that these elements help managers predict and influence employee performance. Right? These theories of motivation explain what drives employees. We also have understood that motivation transforms potential into action. Let's give a quick look to the examination from the examination point of view. In exams, focus on the definitions that we had learned, the theories that we did and the practical applications. Like Maslow's hierarchy is the most important question that comes in the exam. Herzberg's two-factor theory and Vroom's expectancy model. Also remember that management brings with understanding people because behavior drives performance. The questions that has been seen in the previous years were explain factors influencing individual behavior, discuss Maslow's and Herzberg's theory, describe Vroom's expectancy theory. Keep revising and keep learning. Thank you for learning with BBA Simplified by Dr. Vinky Sharma. In the next video, I will be coming up with the third unit of OB that will be on Behaviour Dynamics. Do like, share and subscribe for more marathon classes. Thank you so much for watching.